Okay, so my atomic clock says it is 6 p.m. So welcome everybody on Agilelabs webinar. Welcome on our air-conditioned room. And today we have a very special guest, Klaus Leopold, who will talk to us about flight levels and actually in particular what to do to make our fantastic strategy to actually work, because it happens that the strategy is composed, but actually it stays on paper. So we will learn today how to make it actually to be present in life of our companies, of our organizations. So welcome everybody, and let's flight level with what to do to make the strategy work. So welcome, Klaus. Thank you for your time. And
thanks for the introduction and thanks for having me. Yeah, so regarding questions, I think it makes sense. So what I tried to do is I tried to tell you a story, kind of. So it wouldn't make sense if you have a question, if you just type it into the chat so that we don't forget about it. And at the end, yeah, we can go through the questions and I will try to answer as many as possible. Yeah. All right, so yeah, as Pavel already said, the topic is flight levels, and it is flight levels is actually the side topic. The main topic is making strategy happen, and the subtitle is with flight levels. So it's actually two parts of what I want to share. I want to start with a little bit of what is actually flight levels, and then I want to shed a little bit of light to this particular point of how to make strategy happen with flight levels. So let's start with what is flight levels? Well, what is flight levels? I tried to sketch down kind of definition here. But the thing is, this definition changes again and again and again. But the latest state of misunderstanding is that flight levels is a lightweight and cost-effective organizational development approach. And
jak się czujesz po rozmowie?
And no.
And, go on. I will mute in the background. So go on.
Okay, cool. And flight level is a lightweight and cost-effective organizational development approach, and it serves two main purposes. One is to establish organization-wide collaboration, and the second one is to make your strategy happen. And to make your strategy happen, that's where we want to talk a little bit about today. So what are companies doing when they are doing flight levels? Well, in the end, they establish 5 activities on 3 flight levels in your organization. And yeah, I wrote a lot of stuff down in a book which is called Flight Levels, and it will be published in the next weeks, hopefully, in English. This is like kind of new. I have seen the PDF version already, so let's hope that it will be soon on the market. So 5 activities on 3 levels. That's actually what organizations are doing when it comes to doing flight levels. What are these 5 activities? Let's start with the first one. The first activity says visualize situation. So the thing is, when companies are using flight levels, they make their situation visible. It's making sense to see actually where you are flying. That's the thing, right? So when we're dreaming of making improvements in our company context, it actually makes sense to see what's going on, right? So companies visualize the situation. So they don't build boards or something like this. They don't establish flow. This is all like subtasks of visualizing the situation. The point is, we really want to see what's going on in our organization. So we visualize the most important things. Then the second activity of flight levels is that companies create focus. What does create focus mean? Well, it's a big topic, but if we want to summarize it, we could say we value finishing work over starting work, because finishing work brings you money, starting work costs money, right? So what we want to do is we want to create focus and not work on everything at the same time, but only we focus on these things where we actually want to generate the value in the end. So that's activity number 2. Activity number 3 is companies establish agile interactions in their daily work. Agile interactions across teams and departments and everything. So what does this mean? It means that the right people talk about the right stuff at the right time, because having a visualization and something like some focus policies doesn't solve any problems. Human beings solving problems. So this means we need to make sure that the right people talk about the right stuff at the right time. That's activity number 3, which is agile interactions. Activity number 4 is measure progress. What does measure progress mean? Well, doing flight levels for the sake of doing flight levels is actually quite unsexy. We hopefully want to achieve something with it, right? So the idea is that each and every flight levels initiative, if you want to call it like this, starts with a goal. So what do we want to achieve? And then we try to measure whether we are getting closer to what we want to achieve or not. Because if we're getting closer, perfect, let's do more of it. If we're not getting closer, we need to change something, right? So we don't measure things because we can. We measure things because they act as a feedback loop, and they tell us if we are doing the right things, actually, if we're making progress towards our desired outcome. That's activity number 4. And activity number 5, what companies are doing when they are working with flight levels, is they improve. And improve means you're basically turning around and around and around of these 5 activities. The mindset of flight levels is that you are never, ever done. So when you run through these 5 activities, you somehow see the latest state of misunderstanding. This is how your current reality looks like. But then there's real reality and things happen around you. So this means you need to adapt. And the point is you're never, ever done. So there is no finish state. So flight levels doesn't work like a transformation where you transform from state A to a desired state B, and then you're in nirvana for the next 300 years or something like this. That's not the point. That's not how reality works. The thing is, we need to continuously change the way how we are working. So we need to improve again and again and again. So these are the 5 activities that companies are trying to incorporate into their daily work. And if you incorporate these 5 activities in your daily work, the visual artifact is maybe something like a board, something like this. And then you have some policies around it, how to create focus, what are essential meetings that we need, and what are measurements. Yeah, that's actually what we see. So the point now is, what's the point actually? So, I mean, if I take a look at this, it's quite general. So I can easily map Kanban to these 5 activities. I can see Scrum in these 5 activities. I can see design thinking in there. So and many other things. So what's the point with flight levels? Well, the thing is that you don't apply these 5 activities somewhere isolated in your organization. The thing is you need to apply these activities at all flight levels in your organization. This is exactly where the term flight levels kicks in. So we apply these 5 activities on multiple flight levels in your organization. But what are these flight levels? Well, flight level is a term from aviation, and it basically describes how high an aircraft is flying, altitude of an aircraft, right? And the thing is, depending on how high you are flying, you see different things. You can fly very low. Then you see a lot of details. You see people walking around on the street. You see cars. So you have a very high degree of visibility, actually, when it comes to details, right? But your vision is somehow restricted. You don't see a lot of the world. And that's different when you fly very high. When you fly very high, you see a broad spectrum of the world, but you don't see a lot of details. You don't see any cars and stuff like this. You probably see a river, and that's it, right? And the same is true for organizations. We can fly low and we can fly high. And the important thing is neither of them is more important than the other one. It serves a different purpose, right? So flying low serves a different purpose than flying high. So if we map this picture to our organization, we can fly very low in an organization. And if we fly very low in an organization, we are on flight level 1, which is the operational level. Operational level means usually the team level. This is where teams are doing their operational work, right? And the idea is that these teams now incorporate the 5 activities in their daily work. This means they visualize their situation. And then we see probably some visualization like this. They have some policies, how to create focus. They establish actual interactions. They measure the progress and they improve. So that's what they do. Most of the time, an organization has more than only one team. So the thing is, you will see multiple of these flight level 1 systems popping up in your organization. Yeah. In many cases, I would even say in most of the cases, one team alone is not able to deliver value to the market. This means multiple teams need to coordinate in order to deliver value to the market. Yeah. The thing is, in the flight levels way of thinking, we don't solve this problem on flight level 1. If we want to solve this problem, we need to fly a little bit higher. And flying a little bit higher is flight level 2, which is the coordination level. This means multiple teams are needed to deliver value to the customers. Value to the customers most of the time is something like a product, a service, a platform, all these kind of things, right? And we need multiple teams to do this. And the idea is that these teams now collaborate together and they visualize their situation. They create focus, they establish actual interactions, they measure the progress, and they improve. This means they build this flight level 2 system here about the products, right? Which basically describes how these teams are collaborating. Yeah, that's flight level 2. When we say that flight level 2 is, and one more thing important, we also connect the flight level 2 systems with the flight level 1 systems. Yeah. When the flight level 2 system is the world of your products and services and platforms and all these kind of things that somehow create value for the customer, usually an organization has more than only one product or service. So what we see is we see multiple flight level 2 systems in our organization. And again, we apply these 5 activities on all these flight level 2 systems. Sometimes it's not even sometimes, most of the time, when you are in an environment with multiple products and services, you run into the situation that these products are not completely independent. So if you change something here in product X, you probably need to change something in product Y and maybe something in product Z, right? That's again a coordination problem, and coordination problems are being solved on flight level 2. So the thing is, we can build hierarchies of flight level 2 systems. So we can build another flight level 2 system, which somehow manages the dependencies between multiple flight level 2 systems. Yeah, sometimes we call this an operational portfolio. Yeah, but it's again, it's flight level 2 because we are coordinating our work. And again, we are visualizing the situation and so on. So we are applying these 5 activities. Yeah. In companies, we can fly even a little bit higher. And this is flight level 3. Flight level 3 is the strategic level. This means what we are trying to do is we are aligning the work to our strategy, and we are connecting the flight level 3 systems with the flight level 2 and flight level 1 systems. And that's how we are making strategy happen. Yeah. And again, on flight level 3, we are also applying the 5 activities. We make our situation, we visualize our situation, we create focus, and so on. Yeah. So this is actually the flight levels, right? And maybe some remarks about what you see here. So this somehow looks quite hierarchical. And what sometimes people do is they map the org chart to this illustration here. And it's kind of tempting to do it, but that's totally not what flight levels is about. So if you would map the org chart, you could do something like this. Okay, flight level 1, operational levels, these are the teams. We will find the teams on the org chart. So check. Flight level 3 is top management, whatever this means, right? Our C-level board. And then we have our departments and the rest in the middle. That's not the point of flight levels. Flight levels doesn't care about your organizational structure. Flight levels is about the operational structure. So what we try to figure out is how you are coordinating like the flows in your organization. What we want to create is enterprise flow and not a mapping of an org chart. Flight levels doesn't need an org chart at all. The thinking behind flight levels could be something like this. Let's imagine you have 3 teams, and these 3 teams, they always run into dependencies because they have to collaborate on one product. Yeah. So these teams could come to the conclusion, maybe it makes sense that we are coordinating our work across the teams beyond our team borders. So these teams, they decide to build a flight level 2 system. So the flight level 2 system is the system of the teams where you see the work across all these teams. Yeah. And even the operation, this flight level 2 system can be operated by the teams. This means each team sends 1 or 2 delegates, for instance, to a stand-up meeting every week, and they're having a conversation here across the team borders. And after the stand-up meeting, the delegates go back to their teams, and then they have a sync meeting in the teams. And that's how we ensure that information is actually flowing across the teams. So the flight level 2 could be the board of the teams. And now let's assume this is our product A and the product B and the product C. So we have multiple of these flight level 2 systems in our organization. And now we run into this problem that these systems have dependencies. Now, these people who are working on a flight level 2 system, who are nobody else than the people who are working on a flight level 1 system, they decide to build this operational portfolio because they want to manage the work across the different products. Yeah, so again, this operational portfolio is built and operated by the teams in this scenario. And hopefully someone is asking a question, okay, nice, where are we actually flying to? So yeah, maybe these teams built a flight level 3 system. And on the flight level 3 system, we map out the strategy and all these kind of things. And the people from the flight level 2 systems, which are nobody else than the people from the flight level 1 system, they operate flight level 3 system. So we don't need an organizational structure when it comes to flight levels. Yeah, flight levels is not about the org chart. We don't care about your org chart. However, if there is an org chart in place, we of course make use of it. Yeah, because it's part of what's already there. And yeah, hopefully we see seniorish management on flight level 3, because if this is not part of their job to decide about the strategy, I don't know what they are doing, right? Hopefully we see product people like product managers, product owners, showing up on a flight level 2 system, because that's where we are actually talking about the products, right? We hopefully, if there's something like delivery managers and I don't know what, we see them hopefully on a flight level 2, maybe even on a flight level 3. So there are natural roles in an organization that somehow feel responsible for parts of these flight levels. But the thing is, we don't map the org chart to the flight levels. Yeah, we build the flight level ecosystem and then we see whom we need in order to operate it. And I think that's a very essential kind of part when it comes to flight levels and one of the most common misunderstandings. So that's why I spent some minutes talking about it. So these are like the flight levels, right? And the point is, if we want to achieve business agility, this means if we want to act agile on the market as a company, we need to take care of all 3 flight levels. That's the point. We cannot ignore one of these flight levels, right? So yes, and today I want to zoom into the flight level 3 a little bit. Okay, as we said before, flight level 3 is about making strategy happen. This means, yeah, we want to make the strategy or the strategy work actually explicit. We want to connect it to the flight level 2, flight level 1 system so that we can make strategy happen. That's the idea. And how this could work, I would like to, yeah, tell you a story about an organization. And this organization, they had multiple products on the market. The products, they were known for their good German quality, whatever this means. And we're talking about hardware products here, and digitalization is a thing, right? So we want to have digital products these days. And what this company did is they added some digital features at the very late stage to their products. And then there was like these fancy use cases. You can log in with your cell phone via Bluetooth to the device and shut it down. Great, right? So the consequence was that they were somehow losing market shares to young and really digital companies. So they decided to change this. So what happened? They came up, or not they, a consulting company came up with a 5-year digital strategy for this company, how they become digital, and some agile methods were introduced in the company all over the place. What was the effect? The effect was that a lot of money was invested, especially in consulting companies, and they were not sure if the strategy is now executed. So they were like, yes, we have this digital strategy now. We see that people are working, but we are not sure if people are actually working on our strategy. Yeah. So there was these question marks going around in the company. And well, they heard about flight levels. They contacted us and they were like, okay, please help us to put our strategy into action, because that's one thing what you can achieve with flight levels, kind of. We were like, yes, sure. Let's have a look. Let's have a look means we were like talking to them and figuring out what they were doing. And then as we understand what they were doing, we were immediately changing some things. And I will tell you, like the highlights of what we have done in this company. So the very first thing that stood out was how they were actually working. So if this is a timeline, what we could see is that people were working on stuff in this company, which is great because that's the reason why they pay them money, right? And then there was this event once a year where kind of strategy was announced, right? Sometimes like with a big barbecue party, sometimes with an unromantic email, but something like, okay, this is our strategy. And in this company, this led to this situation that people were actually continuing to work on the stuff like what they've done before. Up to this point where the end of year sign was coming closer and closer and closer. And when they saw this end of year sign, this triggered some behavior in this organization. This means more and more companies, more and more people were creating new PowerPoint slides, strategy fulfillment.ppt or something like this. And then what they did is they actually did a mapping. They were like looking at the projects and stuff that they are working, and they were mapping it to the strategy. They were like, okay, this project, yeah, this was digitalization for sure. This project, again, digitalization. So there was this backward mapping. This project, cultural change, perfect. Also one of our pillars in our strategy, right? So they were somehow taking the strategy as a justification tool for the work that they have done. And that's not the point of strategy. So strategy is not something where you map after the year is over, the things you have done to it. The thing is, we need to turn this around. So what we need to do is we need to put strategy in a situation where it is an active driver and it somehow determines what we are doing. So we need to get out of the backward loop. We need to get into a forward loop. And in my way of thinking, this forward loop could look like this. A company hopefully has something like long-term business outcomes, right? And we come up with a strategy which tells us how can we achieve these long-term business outcomes. In my point of view, we also need, as part of the strategy, mid-term and short-term outcomes, which tell us, are we making progress towards our long-term outcomes? So yeah, then here, nobody's actually working. This is just like, okay, we have some outcomes that we want to achieve. And here again, outcomes, outcomes, outcomes. Now, as part of the strategy is a set of coherent actions, like things that we're actually doing in order to make this reality. Yeah. We call these flight items. Flight items could be like, these are projects, initiatives, epics. I don't know what the kind of work is in your company, but this is like real actions, what we are doing. And then the real magic happens when we're actually working, because then we see if we are making progress or not. So we are measuring the progress towards our midterm, short-term, and long-term outcomes. And then we learn. And learn means that most of the time, reality doesn't stick to our plans. So we need to adapt. Yeah. And this would be a forward cycle, actually. And what we want to do is we want to exactly get into this forward cycle where the strategy is an active driver of what we are doing in our company. The thing is, in order to get there, we need to break free from PowerPoint, because usually strategy is somehow buried in PowerPoint slides. That's not the best place for strategy. So we need to get out, we need to liberate from PowerPoint, and we need to make our strategy delivery explicit. And that's exactly the very first thing what we did in this organization. We tried to get into this forward loop, and we made strategy delivery explicit. And we did it by building a flight level 3 system. So what you see here is an example of a flight level 3 system. Not all flight level 3 systems on this planet look like this. This is for this company, and that's really important here. Please do not copy. This flight level 3 system, what I show you here, is wrong because it works for this company. It for sure doesn't work for your company because your context is different, right? But nevertheless, I would like to zoom into this flight level 3 system a little bit and to explain some concepts, what we have done according to this system here. Okay, but again, do not copy. It's wrong what I'm showing you now. So one thing what really was important in this company is that we needed to unite this strategy part and this delivery part, because what we have seen, and it's not only in this company, I actually see it in so many companies, that there are two worlds. You have one world, which is the strategy world, and you have another world, which is the delivery world. And this is like two silos. And in one silo, in the strategy silos, people are talking about OKRs and Hoshin Kanri, and I don't know, they have balanced scorecards and KPIs and all these kind of things. And in the other silo, if you wish, in the delivery world, people are talking about, we need to do Kanban, we need to do Scrum, and I don't know, Safe, and so on, right? And this is actually two separate worlds. And they are also treated as two separate worlds. And in this company, this was really a big problem. So there was no connection between these two things. And that was the very first thing that we made explicit on our flight level 3 system. So if you take a look at this flight level 3 system here, what you see here on the right side, this is the delivery part of the board. Yeah. And the rest here, that's the strategy part of our flight level 3 system. And the point is, we see delivery and strategy on the same board. And furthermore, we also connected them. Before we talk about the connection, let's zoom in to this delivery part of this board. So I would just like to zoom into the right side of the board. And the right side of the board, again, this is wrong what you see here. It works for this context and it doesn't work for your context. But in this context, it was a very, very simple 4-column board. kind of. Yeah. So what we see here is a set of coherent actions, as I said it before, right? So these are the flight items, and flight items here were initiatives. Yeah. They had, so here we are like at the company that is somehow developing drones and stuff like this. So we have something like, okay, we need to develop a 200-kilogram payload body. Okay, perfect. That's something what we can do, right? So these are the flight items, initiatives, and they follow a very, very simple, well, I don't want to say flow, kind of stages. So we have some initiatives that are still on ground. This means nobody's working on it. In flight means people are working on this initiative. Demo, quite nice. This means, okay, we are having a demo. We are showing how this increment or how this initiative was being done. And then done means, okay, we're done with it. So a very, very simple overview of how or on what topics the company is working. So this was the right side of the board, right? The delivery part. If we go to the left side of the board, what we try to do there is we try to overcome a gap, a time gap, because there was really one problem in this company that we had something like a strategy paper. As I said before, a consulting company was here. They, I don't know, produced 300 pages of this is your digital strategy. So we know the long-term outcomes for the next 5 years, what was going on. So we know this strategy paper, and people were talking about these 5 years. And then we had teams who were working in agile methods like Kanban and Scrum. This means they were thinking in weeks. So, and in the middle, there was nothing. So we had the strategy paper where we are dreaming of the next 5 years. And then we had agile teams that are working in a sprint kind of logic where weeks count. And in the middle, or in between, there was a big void. And this led to a lot of misunderstandings. So for instance, the people who were working on the strategy, they were like, okay, in 2 years, we will launch our products in the Latin American market. Yeah, that's what we need to do. And the people who are actually working on the delivery tasks, they were like, you're completely nuts. It doesn't even work in our market. It will never, ever work in the Latin American market. Yeah. So there was this disconnect somehow, but you could also see this disconnect from the other side, actually. So the people who were working in sprints and so on, they were like, okay, can please someone come to us and help us prioritize? We have so many great ideas, but what do we need to do in our next sprints? And the people from the strategy, they were like, well, we have no freaking clue what you're doing in the next 2 weeks, but you know, in 2 years, we are dominating the Latin American market. Yeah. So you could always see this complete disconnect. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to overcome this time gap in our Flight Level 3 system. How did we do this? Well, we had this strategy paper with the long-term outcomes. What we did is we made midterm outcomes explicit. We broke down the midterm outcomes to short-term outcomes. And when we were talking about short-term outcomes, we can connect them to the delivery tasks already. Yeah. So this is how we wanted to overcome this time gap. And the thing is, this is not a PowerPoint slide. I mean, this is now PowerPoint slide, but in real life, we made it explicit on a Flight Level 3 system, and it looked like this. So these outcomes and this breakdown of the outcomes was this part of the board. I'll zoom in quite quickly. I want to show you one thing beforehand. Remember, this was the right side of the board. This was the delivery part. And the point is we connected this delivery part, like the flight items, to this outcome world here. So in these 3 boxes, we had our long-term outcomes, we derived the midterms outcomes out of it, the short terms outcomes, and then from the short term outcomes, we derive initiatives like flight items out of it, which tell us, okay, what do we actually need to do in order to achieve these short term outcomes? And when we achieve the short-term outcomes, the chance is high that we achieve the midterms outcomes. And when we achieve the midterm outcomes, the chance is high that we achieve the long-term outcomes. So we had traceability from the long-term outcome down to the thing that people are actually working. And we had it explicit on our flat level 3 system. So let's zoom into these 3 boxes here, because they are not just boxes with static outcomes. These outcomes, they are moving within these boxes. So we had 2 axes. We had one axis, which is a progress axis. This means we were showing how much progress are we actually doing or having with this outcome. So let's assume we have, I don't know, a short-term outcome of we want to gain 100 reference customers for a new product or something like this. Yeah, if this is our outcome and I have 0 reference customers, this outcome is here on the very left side. And if we have 50, it moves to the middle. And if we have 100, it moves to the right, right? So you see how much progress are we actually making with our outcomes. Then in this particular company, we also had a y-axis, and on the y-axis, we had confidence. Confidence was like, okay, how confident are we that we are going to achieve the outcome? This came in quite handy, especially in situations where you don't see the progress immediately. So for instance, if you have an outcome which describes like a certain number of users is using your product, but you haven't developed the product yet, so you won't see any progress, right, on this outcome. But you can like come up with a confidence during the development process to see are you achieving the outcome or not. So the confidence axis here was basically a collective gut feeling of all the people that were coordinating the work in front of the board. But it helped us to see actually, are we making progress? And that's the important thing. Are we making progress? Is really important. So one thing is to see the progress. This means we need constant updates, and constant updates means we are also meeting in front of the board each and every week. That's another misconception I see so often when people talk about strategy. They think, okay, let's have a quarterly strategy meeting in front of our system or so. This doesn't make any sense. I want to see it now if I achieve the outcomes or not. So in many organizations, it's really like this. So these are our quarterly outcomes. Go and work on it. After a quarter, we see us again and we check whether we achieved the outcomes or not. This doesn't make any sense. The thing is, I want to see progress during the quarter, right? So if I don't see any of the outcomes moving after 1 week, I probably don't care. After 2 weeks, I probably don't care. 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. If I don't see any progress after 6 weeks, maybe that's half of the quarter, right? Maybe we won't achieve the outcome. So is 6 weeks half of the quarter? Yeah, we can calculate this later. But the point is, I want to see progress on a weekly basis, right? And if I don't see the progress, I need to adapt. I need to change. And that's the reason why we established like weekly sync meetings in front of the board. Yeah, so this is actually how we overcame the time gap. Yeah. What was another thing in this company is that there was missing context. What does this mean? So as I said before, they defined outcomes. Yeah, and let's get back to this outcome. That, for instance, until the end of the year, we want to gain 10 reference customers for our new product. So these were smart people. They were able to read. Yeah, so they understood what it means. We want to have 10 reference customers. Perfect. But the question was always, why 10? Why not 8 or 5,869 customers? So where does this magic number 10 come from? So people were missing context the context actually why they wanted to achieve these outcomes. And if you were asking the strategy people, they were like, well, it's somewhere explained in our 300 pages document. Yeah. So that's not a very enlightening answer. So what we tried to do is we tried to provide context so that people understand why we are doing things that we are currently doing. So we basically put out the necessary pieces of these 300 pages strategy and put them directly on our board, on our flight level 3 system. These are these context informations. We call them stories. Stories, they provide context of what's actually going on in your organization. We had different stories. We had stories which were explaining outcomes. So for instance, if we have this outcome that a certain product shall lift 100 kilogram, there was a reasoning behind it, why 100 kilogram is the goal we want to achieve, right? So we just wrote it down in text, yeah? So we described the why, we gave context about our outcomes that we want to achieve, but not only about the outcomes, also about what are we doing as a company here. So this company, they didn't have fancy vision, mission, and all these kind of stuff, yeah? We just came up with some guiding principles, which is like, okay, we bring heavy loads to places which are very difficult to access. Perfect. We know what we do. We are committed exclusively to the civil society and we don't do any military products. Okay, perfect. We know what we do and we also know what we don't do, right? And environmental sustainability is important to us and these kind of things. So this was also part of the board. So we could always like cross-check with a broader context what we are actually doing here, yeah? These stories, not to mix up with user stories, so it's different stories, and you can see it here with this story quite easily. Stories could be actually anything. So for instance, in this company, Wardley Maps, the strategy development tool, Wardley Maps was widely spread, so many people understood Wardley Maps. So we didn't translate a Wardley map into text to come up with a story or to provide context. We just pop the Wardley map on the flight level 3 system, and we already had the context. Some other companies are using something like, I don't know, value propositions and business model canvases and all these kind of tools. It just put it on the appropriate area on the flight level 3 system if you have something like this to provide context. And the same is true with indicators, with measurements. They're just part of the system so that you get a complete picture of what matters now. I don't want to run to the 300 pages and look up into some PowerPoint slides what matters now. I want to see it in front of my face right now. And that's what we did with stories, context. That was number 4. Number 5 is, and that's already the last point, what we did in this organization. This organization, they had great ideas. And having great ideas is cool, but making ideas happen is even cooler. I mean, Silicon Valley is full of great ideas, right? And the problem in this company was that they also had a lot of ideas and they were like, okay, let's start all these ideas. And this ended up in a huge number of things that they are actually working on. And we know what the consequence is when you are in playing this game of infinite work in process. There's permanent reprioritization going on. So really, like, people were going from one reprioritization or reporting meeting to another. So they were barely working. They were just trying to manage the overhead of so many initiatives going on. As a consequence, slow delivery, because we were busy with reporting and reprioritizing stuff. Unhappy people, because that's really frustrating. And in the end, chaos. This is actually what was going on here. So we were like, okay, we need to change this. And how did we do it? Well, we came up with another box on top of the board. The headline here is explore and refine ideas and opportunities. And that's actually what was going on here. So we tried to put a kind of filter on top of the funnel. The ideas were not going straight into the system, they were going into this box. And this box was also not a dumpster. There was also, there was also something like access there. So for instance, we had this idea of, I don't know, we want to acquire one of our competitors because they are in financial problems. So how good are we understanding this? So we have an access here. Depending on our understanding, if we have a good understanding, this idea would be quite up here. If it's not so good, it would be somewhere down here. There was also an x-axis, and the x-axis was the time. When do we think this matters? When is this important? So this somehow mapped to the outcomes or the realization part below. So if it matters now, it was on the very right side. This is exactly where the flight items actually are. Soon is somehow in the next quarter, later in the next year, and even later was like in the future. Yeah. And just having this x-axis shaped the conversation a lot, because sometimes ideas were like, I don't know, they tried to kill ideas. But if you took a look, the idea was actually great, but they had a different understanding of when it matters. So if someone was pitching an idea, one group of people thought, okay, they want to start realizing this idea immediately, so this doesn't make any sense, so let's attack the idea. But the people who were pitching the idea, they were like, okay, we should work on this like in 2 years. And just like having this x-axis in the room shaped the discussion a lot. And again, as I said before, this was not a dumpster or a waste bin where you could just throw ideas in. They were continuously working on these ideas and opportunities. So there was again a weekly, they called it refinement sync, where they were refining these ideas. So this was an active task each and every week where they were going over this box and trying to make sense out of it. Yeah. So these were actually the parts of the flight level 3 system, what we have seen in this company. Yeah. So yeah, what does this flight level 3, what we have built here, actually do? Well, what we did is we made the strategy and the delivery explicit. You remember we have the delivery part and we have the strategy part, and we mapped it together. We linked these two things. So we know when we are working on this initiative, it drives this outcome. We bridged the time gap. So we were really talking about the long-term strategy, broke it down to midterm, short-term, and to the initiative. So the time gap was kind of closed. We introduced stories which explain the context of what matters right now. And there was a continuous, maybe is the right word, refinement going on for these ideas and opportunities, because we don't want to swamp the company with great ideas, and nothing of these great ideas is finished. So if I take a look at the time, I think that's everything I wanted to share as an input. This is how we try to make strategy happen in this organization with a flight level 3 system. Thank you.
Thank you, Klaus.
The question is, do we have questions?
Exactly. Thank you very much, Klaus. And guys, do you have any questions? This is the time to ask. And as I said at the very start, if you cannot ask verbally, please write on chat and we will take care of it.
Someone is raising the hand. How do I pronounce your name?
If it's me, Chris, it's fine. Hi.
Chris, okay. That's easy for me.
Yeah, Klaus, when I look at the flight levels, they resemble the less approach of scaling agile. did you? Yes, you know, there's teams on the ground, the Scrum teams. Then you have those Scrum of Scrums and Scrum of Scrums, and go. How do you find the resemblance between the less and the flight levels? Is it something that they have in common, or they are very apart from each other? Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for this question. The honest answer is I don't know, but I get this question quite often, and I also get the same question with SAFe. I get the same question with Nexus. So no matter whom I show this picture, depending on what's in their head, they can map something on this picture because it's quite general. And I think that's the strength of this approach. The thing is, it's completely different than SAFe and less, although I don't understand SAFe and less. But what I understand is in SAFe, for instance, we have roles. We have like I don't know, there are roles, release, train, engineers, and these kind of things. We have, I don't know, we have structures like portfolio planning, we have prescribed meetings and all these kind of things. You can map all this stuff on flight levels, perfect, yeah? But you don't need to because there is SAFe for it. And the same is true for less, right? So in less, we have an order, we have this Scrum, we have this Scrum of Scrum and these kind of things. So if you have less in your head, you can most likely map your less onto flight levels. But again, you don't need to do it because there is less. But if you don't have less, next, or SAFe or whatever in your head, you can come up with your own tailored solution. And that's the point of flight levels. So flight levels is more like a thinking model. You apply it to your context, you see where the problems are, and then you change and improve the current situation. And yeah, you can come up wherever you are. But the point is, each and every organization, so one more thing, you're actually not introducing flight levels because the flight levels are already there in your company. What you're doing is you're making it visible, right? Hopefully your organization has something like an operational level because people are working there. Hopefully we have coordination going on. Hopefully we have strategy going on. So with flight levels, we somehow make this explicit. And then if we see how this is actually working in our context, we can take a decision whether this makes sense or not. So if you apply flight levels to a company which is running less, you will see the less implementation. And then you can see what the problems maybe are in this less implementation, and then we can change it. And the same is true for everything, actually. So you do not introduce flight levels, they are already there, but you make them explicit, kind of, and improve it. So there's not an either or. Shall I do less or flight levels, right? So they work also perfectly together. But does this somehow make sense, Chris, what I'm trying to get across here?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Thank you for that.
Cool.
What is the next question? So I have one, and you guys can think about the other questions. So Klaus, when you have this strategy, right, and then it is, let's say, like maybe not split, but translated into smaller steps, right? So it is something which actually this top level CEO should, okay, we produce the strategy, and right now let's think how to cascade it and make it smaller to down to our teams. Or actually, should it be like, or does it work like this, that, okay, this is strategy, and now you from the bottom of teams think how you want to implement and, you know, cut it to as small stuff as you want.
Yeah. So even here, flight level doesn't tell you, you have to do it like this. And if you don't do it like this, flight levels police will put you into jail. It's more like, you make it explicit how it is, and then you reflect, and then you see that. How can I answer this? So I have not talked about one huge part of flight levels, which is the flight level systems architecture. And in the flight level systems architecture, we have so-called flight routes, which basically describe us how work is flying through the organization and how the decision-making process is actually being done. So we have patterns. And if you see a pattern like this in the decision-making, right, that on flight level 3 are done all the decision and everything is just like going down like this. If you see something like this in the flight route, this doesn't necessarily have to be a sign that this is bad, because we have these decisions, but we also have other decisions. So if this pattern is dominant, we can think about, do we really think that this is the best way of working? And I think that's exactly the point where you need to have like an experienced flight levels guide or flight levels coach during this process, because they can ask these questions. They can challenge you. So it's again, you make it explicit. So currently, this is how our decision-making in terms of strategy is going on. And now someone needs to raise the question, is this a great idea? Or what if it would be different? What would be the pros? What would be the cons? So the thing with flight levels is we don't give you the solution, the one and only solution. We try that you understand how your work actually works. And based on this understanding, you take a decision what's best for your situation. And that's what flight levels is actually about. That's the core of flight levels. Does it somehow make sense?
Yep, thank you. It's time for next question. The one and only chance to ask Klaus directly and get the answer.
The one and only chance. Exactly. Chris is waving again.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so I understand it's the same like with any other approach that we implement in a company. We need to have that sponsor from the company, and actually it should be from the management who wants to implement that. Because what Paweł has mentioned, the breakdown of the strategy to deliver tasks, make it sensible and making it working, is something that the sponsor, some C-level executive, should care about that. And you said that C-level sponsor should be on the flight level 3, because otherwise the other approach could be that the organization, more like in Scrum, the organization takes care of itself. But which of those two, or maybe the other management approach, which is the strategy of successful implementing flight levels in a company? Something like this, if you could say a few words.
Yeah, totally agree. We need a sponsor. So someone needs to, I don't know, care about flight levels, because otherwise it's really getting tricky. And depending on who's the sponsor, we have a certain power of change. If our sponsor is, of course, the C-level, we can change a lot, right? But if the sponsor is not the C-level, we can also change things within the decision authority that we actually have, right? And the thing is, we can also find flight level 3 systems not only once, like on one area in the company. We have most of the time multiple flight level 3 systems. So let's imagine a company like Lufthansa. Everybody knows Lufthansa, I think, right? So Lufthansa has roughly 500 companies. Yeah, not people working there, but 500 companies. So you have one big flight level 3 system for the Lufthansa group. And then you have, like, for instance, an outcome, which is like, we want to, I don't know, save CO2 emissions. Always a good bet these days, right? And then you have other flight level 3 systems, like, for instance, Lufthansa Passenger, Lufthansa Cargo, Lufthansa Operation, Lufthansa Technics. So this is different companies, actually, right? They somehow inherit these outcomes from the flight level 3, and they try to make something out of it. Yeah, so we can build a flight level 3 for the entire group. We can build a flight level 3 for Lufthansa Passenger, and within Lufthansa Passenger, it's still thousands of people. We can probably build another flight level 3 systems for specific products. Yeah, so depending on where my sponsor is, I have a certain degree of what I can change. And the very first step I would do is I would build a work systems topology. And this means for this area where we have the power to change things, we need to see what are our flight level 1, 2, and 3 systems and how are they connected. So we basically come up with a map. We call this map like a work systems topology. So, and if we don't have any connection to the flight level 3 system, then this is not part of our flight levels implementation. This means we only have, power of the delivery system. And this means like real business agility is not possible, because I say you need to have all 3 flight levels in place if you really want to act agile on the market. But the thing is, it's never too late for a happy childhood. We could start with only 2 flight levels, and we could try to bring the flight level 3 people on board. Yeah. But it's not so easy then if we can already start with it. So a very long answer. But the thing is, it's not about the mapping of the org chart. That's the very first thing. Try to identify the sponsor, and within the area where you have power, come up with a work systems topology. This means what are your actual flight level 1, 2, and 3 systems? How are they connected? And then let's see what we can build out of this.
Thank you very much, Klaus. Thank you.
Okay, so let's ask the last question. Who want to take the opportunity? So 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Thank you very much, guys, for attending the webinar. Thank you very much, Klaus, for sharing all this very interesting experience and actually flight levels in use, especially that this strategy being in real use is pretty often the, how to say, the problem for the companies.
Yeah.
So very, very interesting from the experience. Thank you very much for sharing it with us, especially that I know that you just came back from a long trip. So thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks for having me, and have a good evening.